Shavua Tov. So the last couple of weeks, we were doing Psalm number 6, Perek Vav. And Perek Vav, of course, is, for many of us, we recognize it as the Tachanun for Ashkenazim. And the major action going on in Psalm 6 is that at the beginning of the poem, David HaMelech is addressing God in this really depressing way. He really feels terrible, and he's davening to Hashem to make him feel better. His bones, are crushing, and his tears are so voluminous that they're flooding out his bed at night. And then the second half of the poem is very almost triumphant. In other words, the sense is that David HaMelech at some point felt that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was listening to his prayer. And when that point is reached, there's a tremendous turnaround in the poems. That's the big deal in Psalm 6. And that's what most of us Ashkenazim, are thinking when we say Tachanun. That, boy, I feel in a bad situation. I wish I could get in touch. Then the end of the poem is, you see, when you feel you're back in contact with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everything seems much, much better. And that's a wonderful, wonderful message about Shuvah and about, getting through life. This poem, Psalm 25, Perek Chav, is the Tachanun of the Sfardim, of Edot HaMizrach, but also Chabad. And the reason Chabad picked it up is because the Ari said it. And the Chabadnikim really view themselves as the heirs to the legacy of the Ari HaKadosh here in Eretz Yisrael. And if you notice, most Hasidim, if you go into their shuls, what their davening is called Nusach Svard. And it was affected by Kabbalah and by the Ari. However, what Chabad davens is mamish called Nusach Ari. So even though it's very close to Nusach Svard of other Hasidim, it is indeed different. It's just an editorial comment. Maybe we should turn off the tape for this. In America, you go into an Ashkenaz shul, and you can assume it's Ashkenaz. I mean, I'm going to say 90%, unless they're mamish Hasidim. It's going to be Nusach Ashkenaz. Here in Eretz Yisrael, if you go into a shul that they tell you is, that's Ashkenaz, especially if the person talking to is a Sephardi, they say that's an Ashkenaz shul, there's a good chance once you get inside that the Nusach is Sfard.
You can usually tell by a sign. On many shuls, they have signs that they switch depending on who the...
Oh, right. That's a separate thing that they have here. I don't think you ever see in America. I don't remember ever seeing that in America. Right. Because America follows the practice of Reb Moshe Feinstein, who he quoted Rav Henkin, who was the person in front of him as being head of basically the Psak Halacha in America. And they said that people don't have a nusach. Communities have nusach. So the shul has the nusach, not the individual. But here it's very common that the person that davens in the Yom chooses the nusach. But in general, you go into shul, they tell you it's nusach Ashkenaz or is Ashkenaz. The nusach is Sfard. Much more common here in Israel than in America. But okay, be that as it may. Ashkenazim, Nusach Sfard, Nusach Ashkenaz, Nusach Hagra, doesn't make a difference. They say Perek Vav, Perek Chav is for the Sfardim, and Nusach Ari, which includes Chabad. So at the end, next week, I hope, we'll talk about why, what they like about this, but first we have to look at the poem and do our best to understand it. This is the first, there are 7 poems in Tehillim that have the Aleph Bet. This is the first in order. Now, if you subscribe to the position that the poems in Tehillim are in chronological order of how David HaMelech wrote them, except for the ones he didn't write, because we know, a dozen were written by Moshe Rabbeinu. There's Bnei Korach. There's except for the, I'm going to say 40 or so that he didn't write. There's a chronology. So if you believe that, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But anyways, this is the first of the 7 that's in alphabetical order, and that's going to come up with a little bit of a problem, as you're going to see a couple of letters are missing, just like in Ashrei as well. So it begins LeDavid. It is a poem for David, or of David, or by David, and it begins with the superscript, with this introduction, Elecha Hashem Nafshi Esa. To you, Hashem, I'm going to translate, I lift my soul. I'm going to start by saying, I lift up my soul. It's the translation I have in front of me here, which is the Koran. I lift up my soul. And I think that's a fine translation. However, a lot of people say that the terminology Esa doesn't mean to physically lift. It means that you're bringing an offering. That it's a language that's used for sacrifices, for korbanot. Yeah, it's very warm in here. Hi, Shavua Tov. Yeah, once you get your coat off, you feel a little bit better, but it is warm in here. So that when he says, Elech Hashem nafshi esa, I lift up my soul, it could mean I'm trying to reach up to you, which is cool. Could mean I'm trying to daven to you. Or it could be, as some Meforshim say, including the Ibn Ezra, I'm sacrificing, I'm offering my soul to you. That it's sort of like that song Bilvavi, if you remember that tune from the 70s. We talks about the Akedah, and Avram was going to offer up Yitzchak, so we offer up ourselves. As we do our own, when we daven, we do our own Akedah. We do our own offering up of ourselves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that may be what the superscript, the introduction of our poem, Hi Shavua Tov, is saying, which is obviously a very cool idea. So it can mean I'm trying to reach Hashem, could mean I'm davening to Hashem, or could be I am trying to offer up myself to Hashem. Okay. Now, if you notice in the poem, I have some material which is in bold and some material which is in regular. The stuff that's in bold is basically what David HaMelech is saying something nice about himself. He's basically describing himself as being in a good place. The things that are in the regular script, the unbold, is where David HaMelech is more describing himself in, I've got problems, I've got sins, I've got issues. So let's begin with he begins with a positive, which, by the way, is unusual in the Psalms. The Psalm 6 is more normal. In Psalm 6, it is more regular within the style of Psalms. It's very common in Psalms that David HaMelech starts off with a problem. I'm really in a bad way, God, help me out. And then it ends with something positive. Here, it's the opposite. He starts off by saying, things are okay, as we'll see in a second. And look at the last line. The last line, you'll know, is not in bold. The last line, he's talking about his tzaras. It's a funny poem that way, but we'll talk more about that next week when we get toward the end. But let's see how this positive idea that David HaMelech starts the poem with. Elokai, bicha batachti. I have always, this is the pluperfect. This is that past tense which continues into the present. Okay, I think it's called pluperfect. Anyways, but it's a past tense that means it continues. So it's sort of like translated. I have always had bicha, in you had faith. Elokai bicha batachni al evosha. Please don't allow me to become embarrassed, ashamed. Don't leave me bereft. Now, I'm translating that as embarrassed. He says, translation is ashamed. Don't allow me to be in this sense of feeling bad in front of other people. Ashamed. Please save me from that. Now notice the poem begins with Aleph, Elokai, and then comes the bet. So in other words, even though the poem, and because the next line starts off with Gimel, so we've got the Aleph and the bet in the same pasuk as we go through the alphabet. Okay. Elokai b'chobatachti alevosha. Please don't embarrass me. Don't allow me to be ashamed. Al ya'altzu oivai li. Don't allow my enemies to alitza. Now, I'm going to say rejoice, triumph. Ooh, triumph. Not good. Okay, rejoice. Alitza means to be happy. Same word. Aliza and alitza are very, very similar. Ayin Lamed Tzadi, Ayin Lamed Zayin. Ayin Lamed Zayin are like very similar in terms of joy. Don't allow the bad guys. And this is a common thing that David HaMelech says. Now you have to remember, David HaMelech is also a military person. He's not just a king. He's not just a shepherd. He's not just a poet, okay? He's also a military man. So for him, the greatest embarrassment is military loss and the gloating, if you will, of the other team. Whenever I see these lines from David HaMelech, I mean, maybe I'm just going to speak to the two guys in the room for a minute. The image in my head is like in the NFL, after a defensive lineman has just sacked the quarterback, and they do like a little dance over the quarterback. That's the image in my head of this particular. Don't allow the bad guys, my enemies, to rejoice over me. But I apologize. I mean, I probably should have something more esoteric but anyways, that's the image I get in my head. And David HaMelech is a military person. For him, that's the worst thing. You know, you can lose in two ways. You can lose with dignity, or you can lose in such a way that the bad guys are literally dancing around you, okay? And you know, and apparently David HaMelech knew both experiences, and he was very, very much concerned that he should never be in that bad situation. And remember your comment. I'll be back 1 second. Remember what he said before he fights Goliath. It's not my honor that's being embarrassed by this, you know, Oizvorf, by this big giant who's, you know, coming out to embarrass. He's embarrassing God's army. He's embarrassing the Jewish people. It's a busha to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's why he said, I'm going to fight him. I can't allow this cherpa, this blemish, to continue. And that's what he talks about here, because it's not just him. It's also his army, and his army represents Kadosh Baruch Hu. So don't allow that scene to happen. I apologize.
No,
I was on a roll. I couldn't stop.
I understand, and it's actually that's the point, because here the translation doesn't say my enemies, but it says having my prayer rejected. So what you're talking
Really?
about, the substance of I know I don't see it in the Hebrew either, but here, let me not be shamed by having my prayer rejected after I have trusted in you. So that's what he's saying to go in you know, defeating the enemy. Basically, he's saying, if he would defeat me, it's my prayer.
Right. It's not just me who is lost. It's the Jewish nation. It's God. It's right. It's Torah. It's everything we stand for.
And
because when we go to
an extra step, not saying my enemies, but the substance is that it's you that's being rejected if I lose.
Right. Which means my attempt to worship you has failed.
That's what's been rejected.
Yeah, you know, enemies is the word oyev means enemy. That's a very interpretive translation. Gam kol kovecha. Now, the word kovecha I should have like underlined or something, but I already used everything, so I didn't. Because the word kovecha and kiviti comes up is very important word in the poem. I mean, it's a very important word also. I mean, hatikva. I mean, we're very much into, you know, kiviti Hashem, okay? And this is a very important idea for Jews in general, for our modern nation. But he says, all those who have I'm going to say hope in you. Lo yevosha should never be ashamed. Who should be ashamed? Habogdim rekam. Those who are a boged is begida is treason. A boged is a traitor. Okay, so bogdim are those who are traitorous. Rekam. It's not so clear how to translate the rekam. I think it means those who should be embarrassed are those who are traitors to the people who have nothing. So I'm looking at rekam as sort of the direct object. It doesn't have to be translated that way. Moreover, let none that wait on thee, wait on thee, makes it sound like, you're like a Meltzer, right? You like wait, but it doesn't mean that you have a little schmata on your wrist. Wait on you means who will expect your okay. Let them be ashamed who betray rekam for no reason. He says rekam who are empty without, like rebel without a cause, for no reason. Okay, it's not shir. Some people say who are traitorous to you for no reason. Rekam, they're empty. In other words, there's never a good reason for betraying God. Never. So that people that do it are rekam, are empty. So you can look at this and you can translate it a couple of different ways. I happen to like the one that they are terrible and deserve to be embarrassed because of what they do to other people. That they are bogade, traitorous to people who are empty. But it could be that they're traitorous for no reason. They got no good reason for being against you because there can be no reason for ever defying Hashem. Without cause. There can never be a good reason for betraying God. It just can't be true. God is the essence of everything which is good and positive in the world. Betraying God is ridiculous. Okay, so I have to talk about two words in this line before we go on. Now, first one is kiviti, and it's going to come up. Kovecha, kiviti comes up at the end of hey. The two letters that are missing from the alphabet in the poem are kuf and vav. So I think David HaMelech, I didn't really see anybody talk about this, and maybe I didn't look around enough. No, it's alphabetical. The poem has Aleph, Bet, Gimel. You came in a minute late. One of the things I said is this is the first of the 7 Psalms which go in alphabetical order. And the first time it happens. But there are 2 letters missing. The Vav is missing. You go straight from Hey to Zion. And the Kuf is missing. We have Resh twice. We'll talk about why we have Resh twice next week when we get to that, okay? But Vav and Kuf are missing. So the word that's missing is Kav. And Kav, which gives us the word Kaveh, okay, which Rivka and I have 2 grandsons named Kaveh, but Kiviti Hashem. Kav literally means a line, but it means a line in terms of like throw me a line, connect me. So when you say Kiviti Hashem, I don't just have hope in Hashem, I am trying to connect with Hashem. So the 2 letters that are missing are the Kav. When Kabbalah began, in the I'm going to say 5th century of the Common Era, 4th century, okay? When they started to show the Sfirot, they did it as 10 concentric circles. Now, we're not used to seeing the 10 concentric circles because by the time you get to the Ari, he totally rearranged. Oh, what's the matter? Everything okay? Okay. Ignore the man behind the curtain. I know that. Okay. What happened was in the 16th century, the Ramak, Moshe Kudavera, I can't believe I don't want to spend too much time on the history of Kabbalah, but Moshe Kudavera rearranged the the Sfirot. And it started before him, but it became popular. It became popular in the 16th century, and they made it, instead of a system of 10 concentric circles, they made it into like a, they called it a tree, Eitz Chaim. And there's actually a picture from the 14th century of somebody planting it, a lithograph, like a woodcut, that's the word I'm looking for. A woodcut, somebody planting it. What's interesting is, I'm not going to go into that. Okay, but it was more like you can jump from one of the Sfirot to another. You can go from Gevura to Hod. You don't have to go in a straight line from one concentric circle further out. They changed the whole system. But when the original system had 10 concentric circles to get to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, to get to spirituality, to heaven, you had to go step by step through all 10. But there was a kav that some people are so spiritual that they can jump. And the kav represented jumping from where you are all the way to Hashem. This poem, David HaMelech is telling us the poem is the kav. He skipped the letters to let you know I don't have kuf and vav in the poem because the poem is the kav. Read this poem correctly and it will connect you automatically and immediately with a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Right? See, kids don't know what a kav is anymore because they get on the phone and they just call whoever they want to get to. We remember what a kav is. Remember when we had party lines, and you couldn't make the phone call because someone else was on the line. The idea of having a kav is like, for us, we remember it's a big deal to get a kav because you couldn't always get one. Or when we, here too. Try to get a phone. When we made Aliyah in '83, the first time we needed a phone, we had to wait 7 months to get a phone. I mean, try to get a kav. It's not so. Or sometimes when you had a phone, you had to wait to get a dial tone, to get a kav. Okay, so this poem is hinting at this poem is the kav. This poem will get you to where you have to be, to Hashem. Okay, so already we can see why for mystics, for Sfardim, for Chabad, this might be a nice tachanan. The other term I want to say something very quickly about is beged. Boged. Boged means a traitor. The worst signs that were put up before the assassination of Rabin was Rabin Boged. I don't know how many people remember those signs, but they were all, I lived in Efrat, I lived in the Shtachim, in Yehuda and Shomron, they were all over the place. And we in Efrat really felt that Rabin had betrayed us because Efrat was okayed by his government back in the 70s. We didn't move in until 83, but it had been okayed when he was Rosh Memshalah, and that he was no longer supporting us. We felt very much like it was a trade, but it was a terrible thing. It's a terrible term to apply to anybody. Look, when Gantz talks about Netanyahu talks about Gantz, they say terrible things. They shouldn't. All they should say is, my policies are going to be different and better. Right? That's what you're supposed to say. Don't call the other guy a boged. It really, really bothers me. However, I want to say something about the word. Beged also means clothing. There are two kinds of clothing. And this is big idea coming up both for this week's Torah reading, when we talk about Big Day Kahuna, and for Purim. The one kind of clothing is levush. Levush emphasizes who you are. A beged hides who you are. Beged is not telling the truth, which is why on Purim, really the costumes are really a beged, and it's supposed to be that way. But basically, you're supposed to normally wear levush, which is why preparation for Shabbos, you say Psalm 93, which talks about levush Hashem levesh. You get dressed twice for Shabbos. You're getting dressed, but you're getting dressed in who you really are. Because who I really am is what I wear on Shabbos, what I wear during the week. That's just helping me get ready for Shabbos. That's not the real me. So a levush is who you really are, a beged is not. So how come the clothes of the Kohanim are called Big Day Kahuna? Why not levush Kahuna? Because the Kohen Gadol is making believe he's a malach. It's not revealing who he really is, because a flesh and blood human shouldn't be able to do the things that the Kohen Gadol does. A flesh and blood human being really shouldn't be able to go into the Kodesh Kodeshim, things of that nature. Okay? So that's why it's called Big Day Kahuna. He's claiming and trying to be angelic, to be totally ruchani, spiritual. Okay? So these clothes help him get there. So normally, Beged is negative, but not in the case of the Kohen Gadol. It's aspirational in the case of the Kohen Gadol. Okay? Which is good. So line Gimel's got a lot of important words in it for this poem. Okay, and he starts off by the poem saying, Hashem, I have bitachon in you, and I have hope in you, kaveh, okay, and I'm a good guy. However, Dalet and Hey, he starts to say different, but I need some help. Because even though I really do have bitachon and kiviti and all of that, I really have lost my way. Derechecha Hashem hodieni. This is a normal thing for a very spiritual person to say to Hashem when he feels he's done something wrong or he is floundering in life. We have it in Psalm 27, okay, L'David Hashem Ori, Ho Reini Hashem Es Darkecha, right? Teach me your paths. But the first place we have it is Moshe Rabbeinu, after Chet HaMeraglim. After Chet Egel HaZahar, I apologize, after the sin of the golden calf. Moshe Rabbeinu says, gotta flip over. Okay. He says to Hashem, ואתה, אם לא מצא אצלכם בעיניך, הודיעני נא את דרכיך, ואדעך למען אמצעכם בעיניך, וראה קמך הגוי הזה. Show me your ways. And what ends up being the response of Hashem? I can't show you everything, but I'm going to show you something. If I show you everything, you're no longer a human being. But I can show you the Yud Gimel Midot. I can show you the 13 attributes of my mercy, and you can say those things or do those things, and that's how you can improve yourself. You can't be a human and have all of the spiritual answers. But David HaMelech is saying the same thing that Moshe Rabbeinu said. D'rachecha Hashem hodieni. Show me, make me know your derech. Give me guidance on your road. V'ochotecha lamdeni. And your pathways, I'm going to say pathways. I'm not sure if that's the best translation. What? Pathway. Okay, paths. Paths, okay. Teach me. So obviously, you go to the Malbim, and the Malbim says there's no such thing as synonyms in Tanakh. So Derechecha and Orach have got to be different. A derech is a bigger road. It's a highway. So the major thoroughfares you can really learn. You can really know. In other words, everybody can know all the interstates. In Eretz Yisrael, you can know all of those highways that are one digit. You can know Route 1 and Route 2 and Route 3. You can know all of those, okay? But the Orchotecha, that's when you get to those byways that are 4 digits, those are much smaller. Nobody can know all of those. So he's saying, Hodieni, make me know the major the major pathways, the major concepts within spirituality. However, your little paths is a continual process of teaching me. I'm always going to teach. You always have to teach me the new one, whether they're shortcuts or whether they are exceptions to the rule or whether they are the details. So in other words, I can get the 13, but each one of the 13 has corollaries, which are much smaller, and I don't know all of those. One of them, unfortunately, the Radak, actually says the orchot, the little pathways, are quite often exceptions to the rule. That, you never tell a lie, except under the following circumstances. The following circumstances: peace is greater than truth, okay? Emet trumps, shalom trumps emet, okay? So that's something that you have to learn as time goes on. So first he says, teach me or make known to me the major principles and concepts within Judaism. And then, and on an ongoing process, continually teach me all of the details, all of the small, Orchot Chaim, the pathways of life, which include a lot of, little alleyways too. I mean, which unfortunately we sometimes need. And then we go on to the next pasuk. Hadricheni ba'amitecha v'lamdeni. Guide me in your truth and teach me. Now, what's the difference between guide me and teach me? So, of course, we've got the Malbim who talks about this, and so he says, Yoreh. First, he says, show. He uses the word Yoreh. Horeini Hashem, Horeini, teach me. Yadrich, guide me. Lamdeni also means teach me. Hora'ah v'halimud hu al habilti yodeim. Instruction, hora'ah, and limud are teaching things that the other person didn't know before. Okay, they're brand new facts, information. Hadracha hu lahabilti yicholim. Guiding me doesn't mean I don't know the facts. I just can't do it yet. Guiding is like teaching you how to ride a bike or how to drive, Remember when they taught us how to drive? First you take the classroom, and they teach you all these things about the car that you're never going to use in the rest of your life, right? Remember those? Okay. But that they can teach you those facts you'll know. Hadracha is for something I know about it, but I can't do it until you give me guidance. That's when they take you out in the car on the road. So those what the two are. Those are the difference between those two. However, halimud gadol min ha'ora'ah. Teaching is greater than hora'ah. Okay? In other words, hora'ah, limud is like more bigger picture things. Hora'ah is more detailed. So teach me is on the big things. Hora'ah, I don't know how to translate it. I don't know. I need another word. Instruct me. Instruct me on the smaller details as well. So big picture, start off with Lamdeni, and then Horeini is, and instruct me on more of the detailed material. Okay? Yes?
He has an interesting word, accustom me.
For which word? Hadracha, I hope.
Lead me in your truth and accustom me. So it should become a habit or a way of life or part of me.
Okay.
As opposed to.
Accustom me. Okay.
Because a habit takes a while to establish a new habit. And
right.
I'm saying, I think somehow the word feels to me, because until you do something and do it again and again, can it become part of you? So you're asking for God's help for it to become part of you.
Okay. Fine. If you look at the three words, hadrichenu ba'amitecha v'lamdeni, so in other words, truth, God's truth has has things you can learn, okay? But then it has skills. So the lamdani is teach me the truth, whether that means the 13 character traits or it means the concept of the mitzvot, okay? Hadracha in God's truth means and help me actually do it. It's one thing to teach me the ideas, but then when I have to apply it, and so what he's saying in this line and a half, this pasuk and a half means I'm really lost and I need you to guide me back. Then at the end of pasuk Hey, he again says something nice about himself, which is Ki ata Elokai Yishi. You know, I have faith that you're going to do all this for me because of you are my God, my salvation. You have saved me. I feel this closeness. Otcha kiviti kol hayom. All day long. I feel this hope, this connection to you. So even though I don't know all this stuff, and by the way, what is the result of lack of knowledge in Judaism? We would say it is sin. Sin is the result of not knowing. Judaism basically believes, like Aristotle and the Rambam, of course, following the footsteps, that knowledge is coercive. If you know the right answer, I don't think it's true, personally. If you know the right thing, you're going to do the right thing. I don't know. I'm not sure. But the chances are definitely greater. Oh, that's right. That's 100%. But they say knowledge is coercive. If you know the right thing, you're going to do the right thing. That's not been my experience. But, maybe I'm not on the level of Aristotle and the Rambam. I know I'm not, but okay. But, it's embarrassing to admit. I've known that I shouldn't have done that, and I did it anyways. Okay. But anyways, so that's what's going on. First, he starts off by talking about being religious in Bet and Gimel, right? But in Dalet and Hey, he talks about being a Talmid Chacham. Now, there's two different concepts going on in those two different sections. One talks about, faith and trust, okay? And the next one is talk about, I really need the information. I want to be a Talmid Chacham. Because let's be honest, in Judaism, you just, to be a good Jew, you have to just know a lot. It's not easy. You just really have to know a lot. And so that's what's going on in Dalet Hey. Vav and Zion. Zion gets us into the nitty-gritty of the poem. Zechor rachamecha Hashem v'chasadecha. Remember your compassion. I have mercy as the translation in front of me. I don't like mercy so much. I think that mercy is chemla. I think this is compassion. I think rachamecha is much closer to empathy than mercy. Mercy, like grace, really means you're just granting me something without any connection between us. The compassion is closer to empathy. A lot of people have said that biblical Hebrew doesn't have a word for empathy, as opposed to modern Hebrew, which has a great word for empathy. Empatia. A wonderful word. But I think rachamim. I think rachamim is empathy. And it comes from rechem. We've talked about this before. It comes from the Hebrew word for womb. It's what a mother feels for the baby. And that's compassion, that's empathy. And so I don't like the translation of mercy. I'm sorry, Pessi, you were going to give a translation?
Yes, this is what you say, compassion.
He says compassion. Good. I've got mercy in the Koran here. I mean, there's nothing wrong. But mercy. Yeah, you see it often, but I think mercy is a different idea. But anyways, remember. Now, what does it mean when you say remember to Hashem? Well, leave that in Bayas, because the second half of the pasuk is going to tell Hashem not to remember. So it's sort of weird. But wait, we'll talk about what remembrance means. V'chasadecha. There's two things, your compassion and your kindness. Compassion is basically taking advantage of the connection between us. That's compassion. Empathy. Chesed means just do it because you're a nice guy. That's guy with a capital G when you mean God. But anyways, the Kadosh Baruch Hu, just do it because you are kind. Even without Ki me olam hema. Both of those attributes of a Kadosh Baruch Hu are eternal. They from the beginning and will be here till the end. By the way, Chazal on this idea of the Chesed of a Kadosh Baruch Hu is eternal from the beginning to the end points out, famous midrash, that the first act of a Kadosh Baruch Hu was Chesed when he clothed Adam and Chava, and the last act of Hashem in Chumash is Chesed when HaKadosh Baruch Hu buries Moshe Rabbeinu. So Chesed is who HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, right? By the way, when Reb Chaim Brisk, Reb Chaim Soloveitchik died in 1919, he left a tzava, he left a will saying, don't put anything on my tombstone except for my name and the dates. Don't put anything else on my tombstone. Lo and behold, when this tombstone was seen there, and now it's in Belarus, you can still go and see it. I'm not rushing personally, but anyways, it says on it the name Reb Chaim ben Yosef Ber Soloveitchik, okay, Ish Chesed. And so his sons were asked, they asked Reb Velvo and Reb Moshe, Aleim Shalom, why'd you do that? It went against what Reb Chaim said. He said, that was his name. That's who he was. His name was Ish Chesed. I mean, you couldn't think of him without thinking of his kindness. That's who he was. That was his name. And it's just interesting, and that's true of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh Baruch Hu is Chesed. He is the embodied, well, doesn't have a body. God is the, but you can't say that because God doesn't have a body.
No, but it doesn't mean
Okay, God is the conceptual embodiment of Chesed. That's who HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's the etzem of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Chesed. God is Chesed. Can't remember that word embodiment just gets to it. But Me'olam, they are eternal. In other words, as long as there is Hashem, there is Rachamim and there is Chesed. Now Zion, which is connected to this, I underlined. And it's like, David HaMelech is talking about himself disparagingly, so we're in the unbold, but underline means he's actually confessing. And the underlying part, Zion, Yud Aleph, then Tet Zion, through that section, was actually talking about his sins. Of course, remember, this is Tachanun, so talking about sins is appropriate, okay? Chata'ot ne'urai upasha'ai al tizkur. How can that be? You just said, remember, this stuff. Then you said, and God, by the way, could you forget? The answer to the question, can God forget, is no. There's no delete button on a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh Baruch Hu just records everything. There's no forget. So what does that mean? What does that mean? And it has to mean what we mean in davening on Rosh Hashanah. Remember, in Musa of Rosh Hashanah, there are three parts. Malchiot, God is king. Zichrona, God remembers, okay? And the third one, Shofarot, the blowing of the shofar. What does it mean, God remembers? What it means God remembers is God starts to relate to us in a way that signifies acknowledgement of something we did. So when we say God remembered, it means God clicked into a previously given promise based upon the behavior of the Jews. When it says God remembered the Jews in Egypt, God never forgot the Jews in Egypt. God remembered the Jews in Egypt. What he was really remembering was the promise to Avram Avinu that your children will be slaves for 400 years and then I will redeem them. So it's like a switch got flipped. And now God is acting, behaving, confronting, appearing to us as if it was what we would say, oh, I remembered. Oh, I remembered to buy the milk. I'm gonna go to the dairy section of the supermarket. But it's not like that for Hashem. Hashem doesn't forget the milk. But when Hashem delivers the milk, what it means is God's fulfilling a previously made promise to us. So what he's saying is, remember the good stuff, act upon it. Don't remember the bad stuff, don't act upon it. Sadly, the memory is always going to be there. There's no expunging your record vis-a-vis Shemayim, like it can do from a court in America. That sheriff in Arizona, Joe Arpaio, is trying to get his record expunged, that he was found guilty of a crime. He got pardoned by the president, which means he doesn't have to do anything. And the court said, no, we don't expunge that. Yeah, Olmert wants to get it expunged. Yeah, even better, right? So, but you don't get it expunged. But lo tizkor means don't act upon it. And that's the way we have to, in our minds, think of it that way. But what does it mean, chatot ne'urav upsha'ai? There are three different kinds of sins. We've talked about this before. A chet is a sin of negligence. I should have known better. I made a mistake. The famous case of chatat in the Gemara is there were two pieces of meat. One was kosher and one was treif. Well, actually, one was chelev. But the details are important. And you ate the wrong one. I mean, I never wanted to eat treif meat. It was totally a mistake. Okay, I just took the wrong package. Okay, modern version of that is you went to a restaurant, didn't have the hashgacha that you usually got. No. So anyways, so what happened was it was a mistake. It was a lack of knowledge on my part. That's a chet. Sins of my youth are considered by their nature a chet, because those young people, they're so wonderful, but they don't know yet. They don't get it. Okay, so the sins of your youth, those sins are that's a chet by its nature. Even though you wanted that, fill in the sin. You wanted that cheeseburger. Doesn't make any difference. You were a kid. You didn't know better. It's a chet. Pisha'ai, those are sins of rebellion. That's when you're an adult and you really should know better and you do it anyways. That becomes a pesha. He skips right over avon. Avon is a sin of, you knew it was wrong, but you gave in to your temptation. It's a sin of taiva. He skipped over that. He said, when you're a kid, it's a mistake. When you're an adult, it's an act of rebellion, and you should really know better. What's the boundary between ni'urai and adulthood? The simple answer is bar and bat mitzvah, but that's not the answer. Is 20. The Gemara says in a couple of places that you are not chayiv for sins in heaven. You're chayiv in betin starting at bar and bat mitzvah, but you're not chayiv in betin shomala until the age of 20. So this pasuk, according to most of the Meforshim, is referring to betin shomala. You're talking about a Kadosh Baruch who don't remember, don't act upon it. These are sins committed before your 20th birthday. So I only have a few days left. Okay. So what happens is, I want you to know, I had learned that when I went to YU when I was 18. And I was thinking, gee, really, I have 2 years to get my act together, and I'm not sure I did. But anyways, okay. So chataot ne'urai upsha'ai al tazkor. Now, in other words, I know they can't ever be totally forgotten, but don't act upon them, Hashem. Kechastecha zechor li'ata. Remember, act upon. Remember, that's a code word. Act upon your chesed for me. Lema'an tuvecha Hashem. Because it's for your goodness. Now, what does that mean? In what way is Hashem being nice to us good for Hashem? What's in it for God? I mean, there's a bunch of answers we can give. But what do we mean when we said, Lema'an tuvecha Hashem? It's for your goodness, okay? I think the simplest answer is, what's tov? Tov is Torah. And when I act and I behave correctly and I model Torah, then there'll be more Torah in the world. So Lema'an, I happen to like that pshat. Lema'an tuvacha, for the sake of your goodness in this world, that means that there will be more of you and your Torah and your goodness in the world. The other approach is that somehow we've got some sort of cosmic deal with Hashem, both on a personal and national level. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu made all of the covenants with Bnei Yisrael, starting with Avraham and all the way through, made all those covenants because somehow, in ways we don't understand, there is a benefit to Hashem and heaven from us being good and doing the right thing. That first one, I understand, I can handle. I can explain it and tell you what the cost versus, cost benefit is of us doing a mitzvah because, X number of people will see it and do it. Okay, I can handle it. I don't know what the second one means. The second one's very popular. That somehow, if there is a benefit to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shemayim, Tevel, the entire universe, by there being, by us being good. I just don't know what it is. I just don't know what it is. It's something that's above my pay scale, and so I just don't know. It's a fascinating idea. The first one I can really handle, and I like. I really believe that there's something contagious about Torah and mitzvot. That when other people see someone doing mitzvot and being good, I think that there's, I think it encourages others to do it. And I'm not just talking about, the technical laws. I'm also talking about, the chesed laws and, of kindness. There was a wonderful article in the Post magazine yesterday about Yedidim, this organization that just helps people. It's a wonderful article. And there's a truth that when you see one person doing something, it just, Baruch Hashem, it's contagious. Almost everybody has got, a good neshama, and they see other people doing it, and people want to do it. So I like that pshat, and I understand that pshat. This mystical pshat that somehow HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shemayim, somehow benefited from. I don't know. I mean, I'm stating it without any havana of the. But it's a powerful idea that somehow there is this some sort of symbiosis with us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does things for us, and somehow things we do for HaKadosh Baruch Hu somehow benefit HaKadosh Baruch Hu in ways I just cannot possibly fathom. Okay, let's get a tiny bit more. I wanted to get to halfway, but okay. Now we're in black print, good, positive stuff, okay? Tov v'yashar Hashem. Okay, God is both objectively and subjectively good. Tov is describing an objective goodness. It's good. Yashar means not only does it look good, and I said that wrong. Not only is it objective, it looks good too. It has, sometimes, we always, I hope, always want to do the right thing, but sometimes we're concerned if we do the right thing, what's going to, we're afraid what other people are going to think, is going to look good, is going to be right, because we want to have that. So Tov v'yashar, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu ultimately is both good and straight, and both objectively and subjectively. Everything about HaKadosh Baruch Hu is positive. And when we don't notice it, it's because we didn't get it. It's not because HaKadosh Baruch Hu isn't it, but we didn't get it. Okay. Yoreh chata'im b'derech. So therefore, God, instruct sinners on the road. I mean, if you want to translate this badly, you can say, therefore, shoot the sinners on the road. But it doesn't it have an et in there. So Yoreh means kashuk. Yoreh also means to shoot. Okay, but instruct the sinners on the proper path. we talk about OTD, off the derech. The concept of derech is a very old idea. I mean, we have it as a modern thing. We talk about someone who is on the derech or off the derech, but the idea of the derech, the road, the highway, the correct path in life is goes back to David HaMelech and even earlier, and it's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because Hashem, what you are doing and what you represent is both absolutely good and relatively, subjectively good. Therefore, instruct the sinners. Let the sinners see that. And if they do, they'll get back on the road. Because right now, they're on the shoulders and they're off the road and they're just they're just lost in the wilderness. Yadrech anavim b'mishpat. Guide. Now, what do we mean here by anavim? How do we want to translate anavim? Anavim means the modest, the humble. Anav. So, guide the anavim b'mishpat in justice. Look, if you go back to verse Zion, Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't want any justice. Now, when David HaMelech is mentioning his sins, he does not want mishpat. He wants chesed, rachamim. But when you're talking about the anavim, the truly humble and modest people in this world, then they should be treated with justice. They deserve it. Now, what does it mean to be anav? It's a problem. There's a famous joke about the guy that talked about his family, and he says, there's no modesty in my family. I have it all. So it's like, once you start talking about your own humility, obviously there's no humility. I mean, so it's like it's very hard to talk. Anav really means that you do what's right because it's right, and that's it. You don't want anyone else to necessarily notice. You don't want to necessarily get paid for it. You do what's right because it's right. When the prophet Micha says to walk humbly with Hashem, one of the areas that quite often bothers me, in Torah and mitzvah, little kids, when they did something right, they went to the toilet, or they said their first bracha, they come back with all this pride. Look what I did. That's unbecoming in adults. One should no longer a nar. There should be no pride in anything that you've done for doing the right thing. You did the right thing because it's right. And we see a lot of, patting people on their back, on their own back for having done something. And it's really not what we should be trying to, the pasuk about walking humbly, was HaKadosh Baruch Hu asked from us toward the end of Micha. Was actually my haftorah, my bar mitzvah parsha, and I guess it was talking to me because I was not a humble kid. But what? No, but it's okay when you're a kid. It's okay. But when you get to 20 already, then it's time to, and it's very important. It's very important that you do what's right because it's right. And that's the end of the story. And don't talk about whether it's fair or it's not fair. And that doesn't come into the count. It does eventually in Olam Haba. But in Olam Hazeh, just do what's right because it's right, and just walk humbly with Hashem, without any expectations. I say this to Rivka all the time. I always keep my expectations very low. Therefore, I'm never disappointed. You know, but that's not, that's a little bit, that's a little off this point here. This point is very powerful. Be amongst the unloving. Just do it because it's right. David HaMelech had a lot to be proud of, and, you know, he spent much of his poems talking about his shortcomings, not talking about his greatness. And that's pretty great. That's pretty great. Please. You've got something from Hirsch.
Yes,
Blavakasha.
yes, it's quite interesting, I think, because here it says, he leads the humble who can still be led and can still profit by discipline through judgment. He guides them in the right paths by inflicting on them tests and discipline. He leads them into that path which is in accordance with his will by means of the experiences which he has them undergo in this life.
So he's making a different point, which is an important point. He's saying that the truly teachable are the modest. The humble are those who are open to instruction, which is a beautiful idea. He's looking at it from the pedagogic side. I was looking at it a little bit differently. I was looking more from the judicial side. Okay, yeah. Yeah, we are done. We are done. I just went over a little bit. Sorry.
It was right before. 17 minutes.